What if you stopped living for other people's approval? Have you noticed you're tired? Not that physical exhaustion a good night's sleep fixes. I'm talking about that deep burnout from trying to be the version of yourself that others approve of. From editing every word, every gesture, every choice, thinking about what they'll say. From turning your entire life into a stage where you can never break character. The truth is, we live in an era where performance became currency. You perform happiness on social media. You perform success at work. You perform being fine when you're falling apart inside. And deep down, there's a question you avoid asking. Who would I be if nobody was watching? Researchers at the University of Michigan discovered something disturbing. People who base their self-worth on external approval show significantly higher levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. It's not coincidence. It's the direct consequence of outsourcing your validation. Think about it. How many decisions did you make this year that were genuinely yours? How many times did you choose something because you wanted it, not because it would look good in the photo, on the resume, or in Sunday's conversation? If that answer bothers you, you're not alone. We're all trapped in this invisible cage, pretending other people's opinions don't control us while they dictate every move we make. The problem isn't caring about people. The problem is when you disappear in the process. When your identity becomes a product, you adjust according to the audience. When you wake up in the morning and the first question isn't what do I want to do today, but what will they expect from me? And here's what nobody tells you. This performance is unsustainable. You can maintain the facade for a while, but eventually the weight crushes you. Because there's no edited version of you that can compete with the authenticity of simply existing without filters. Every time you sacrifice what you really feel for what you should feel. Every time you hide who you are for what would be more acceptable, you're making a deposit in the wrong account. You're investing in temporary approval that will never truly fulfill you. The question isn't whether this is costing you something. The question is how much longer you'll pay this price. Because living for the audience means giving up living for yourself. And at the end of the day, you're the only person who'll be with you in every moment of your life. So tell me, if your life wasn't a performance, if you could drop that mask right now, who would you be? Because that person you're hiding, she's exactly who you need to be. That version of you that exists beneath all the layers of expectation and performance. That raw, unfiltered human being who knows what they want without checking if it's acceptable first. You've spent so much time learning what to say, how to act, what to show, that you forgot the most important skill, being yourself. Without apology, without explanation, without needing permission from anyone. If this video is stirring something in you, hit that like button. How the search for external validation traps you. Let me tell you something you already know, but pretend not to notice. Every time you post something, there's that second of anxiety, that moment where you're checking notifications, waiting for validation to arrive. And when it comes, it gives you temporary relief. When it doesn't, you question everything. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't it enough? What do I need to change? This vicious cycle has a name. It's called contingent validation, and it works exactly like a drug. You get the dose, feel the satisfaction, peak, and then comes the crash. And then you need the next dose, and the next, and the next. Only it's never enough, because you're trying to fill an internal void with external approval. A study from York University revealed that individuals who depend on external validation for their self-esteem experience extreme emotional fluctuations. When they receive approval, they feel temporary euphoria. When they don't, they spiral into devastating self-criticism. It's like being on an emotional roller coaster you don't control. What makes this even crueler is that the rules of the game constantly change. What was approved yesterday gets criticized today. What worked before doesn't work anymore. And you keep chasing a target that never stops moving, adjusting who you are to fit a standard that doesn't even really exist. Think about the energy this consumes. You're spending your life trying to decipher what others want, molding your personality for each context, monitoring every reaction as if your existence depended on it. And at the end of the day, you're exhausted. Not because you did something meaningful, but because you pretended to be someone you're not. The hardest truth. Even when you get the approval you were searching for, it doesn't satisfy. Because deep down, you know that's not for who you really are. It's for the performative version you created. So you're stuck in a paradox. The more approval you receive, the emptier you feel. And here's the mental trick that keeps you trapped. You believe that if you get enough approval, you'll finally feel secure. You'll finally feel valid. You'll finally be able to relax and be yourself. But it doesn't work that way. External approval never validates who you truly are. It only reinforces the mask. The price of this prison is your authenticity. It's waking up every day and not recognizing who you became anymore. It's being surrounded by people, but feeling deeply alone. Because nobody knows who you really are. Not even yourself. Sometimes. So here's the question you need to ask. What's your inner peace worth? Because as long as you're handing control of your self-esteem to other people, you'll never have that peace, never have that freedom, never have that version of you that exists without fear. Drop in the comments, approval. What if you could live without fear of judgment? Imagine waking up tomorrow and that voice in your head, the one constantly calculating what others will think, simply disappeared. What would it be like to make a decision based only on what you want? What would it be like to express an opinion without first mentally rehearsing all possible reactions? What would it be like to exist without that invisible judge watching you all the time? Most people will never experience this because they're convinced that judgment from others is inevitable. And it is, in parts. People will judge. They always will. But here's the secret that changes everything. Their judgment has no power over you unless you give it that power. Researchers at the University of Texas discovered something fascinating. Individuals with high levels of self-acceptance demonstrate greater emotional resilience and lower vulnerability to social stress. In other words, when you validate yourself internally, external judgment loses its force. Not because it doesn't exist, but because it doesn't define you anymore. Think about how much mental space you'd recover. All that time you spend anticipating criticism, preparing defenses, adjusting your behavior to avoid disapproval. Imagine redirecting that energy toward what really matters. To create, to grow, to truly live. But there's a fear that paralyzes you. If I stop caring what they think, will I become selfish? Will I become insensitive? Will I lose the people I love? And here's the crucial distinction. Not caring about judgment doesn't mean not caring about people. It means consciously choosing which opinions carry weight in your life. You can respect different perspectives without sacrificing who you are. You can consider constructive feedback without bowing to every criticism. You can love people deeply without needing their approval to validate your existence. The difference lies in who's commanding your internal narrative. Here's what happens when you start letting go of this need for approval. At first, it feels scary. You feel exposed, vulnerable. But then something unexpected comes: freedom. A lightness you forgot existed. The sensation of finally breathing deep without having to hold your breath. The right people, those who truly matter, will respect you more when you stop performing. Because authenticity attracts authenticity. And the wrong people, those who only wanted you while you were convenient, they'll disappear. And that's not loss. It's liberation. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to justify every choice to an imaginary audience. You just need to be honest about who you are and what you want. And trust that this is enough. Because in the end, the life you're avoiding living out of fear of judgment is the only life worth living. The one where you're genuine, imperfect, real. The one where you fail, learn, grow without asking permission. The one where you finally recognize yourself in the mirror. Subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Why being authentic is the only revolution that matters. Let's get straight to the point. In a world where everyone's selling an edited version of themselves, being authentic became a revolutionary act. Not because it's technically difficult, but because it requires courage. Most people don't have the courage to disappoint, the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to exist without guarantees of approval. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You spent so much time building this acceptable persona that you forgot who's underneath it. You forgot what you really like. You forgot what you really think. You forgot what makes you feel alive when nobody's watching. You outsourced your identity for so long that now you're afraid to claim it back. But let me tell you something. Every moment you spend pretending is a moment stolen from your real life. Every conversation where you hide what you think. Every situation where you perform happiness you don't feel. Every decision you make based on what's expected and not what's true. All of this accumulates. And one day, you wake up and realize you built an entire life on top of a lie. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology showed that people who live aligned with their authentic values report significantly higher levels of well-being and life satisfaction. It's not magic. It's the consequence of living without cognitive dissonance, without this internal war between who you are and who you pretend to be. Now, being authentic doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean exploding with every opinion without considering context. It means having clarity about your values and not negotiating them for social comfort. It means choosing temporary discomfort of truth instead of permanent comfort of lies. And yes, some people will judge you. Some will abandon you. Some will say you changed, that you're not who you used to be anymore. And they're right. You're no longer that performative version that twisted itself to please. You're the version that chose integrity instead of acceptance. Here's what nobody prepares you for. When you start living authentically, you attract a different kind of person. Those who don't want you perfect. Those who value truth above convenience. Those who truly see you and choose to stay. And these connections are the ones that sustain. Your life doesn't need to be a performance, because you're not a product. You're a complex, contradictory, constantly evolving human being. And trying to reduce that to a palatable version for social consumption is betraying yourself in the worst possible way. So here's the challenge. Start small. One honest conversation. One choice aligned with what you really want. One no said without guilt. One yes said with conviction. And watch how this changes everything. Because in the end, the greatest betrayal isn't when someone abandons you. It's when you abandon yourself out of fear of being abandoned. And the greatest freedom isn't doing what you want without consequences. It's doing what's true and accepting the consequences with dignity. Your life is waiting. The real version of it. The one without filters, without script, without audience. Just you, and genuinely. And that's worth any judgment that may come. Hit that like, comment freedom down below, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this.